So last night I actually played flag football, and I used to play in college intramural sports, but last night I felt like an athlete again.
But you say you play flag football. How'd that go? How'd you get into that?
I mean, growing up I was just always an athlete, but I just love playing sports, and not gonna lie, I was pretty nasty last night.
Would you sign up at a rec center or something? How's that work?
Actually, a girl. So I played dodgeball, just like co-ed dodgeball, and then I invited a girl to play, and then she has a group of friends who play flag football, softball, and everything, and so she invited me that way, and she invited me last night, and everyone was like, "You're coming back, right?" Like, even the other team was dapping me up. They were like, "That was a fantastic pull." Because I was on defense most of the night, and I was just ripping flags. I dove for a flag, ripped it, and everyone was like, "Who are you?"
It's a little ninja out there.
Yeah, I'm like, "Don't mess with me, boy."
Action.
This is why I love podcasting, because you can just be yourself.
Thank goodness I'm not good at being anybody else.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Tristan.
And this is the TMi Podcast.
Man, I'm in the wrong sport. I want to play some flag football.
I am too cocky for my own good. I was on the sidelines. I'm like, man, I need to shut my mouth. I was like, I'm just so cocky, and
Put me in, coach.
I talk mad shit, and I'm just like, I need to shut up. But if you talk a lot of shit, you gotta back it up, and if you can't back it up, don't talk shit. But I talk shit because I can back it up.
Did you guys also know that Michelle is a rapper?
Yeah, those were my bars. Thank you.
That is amazing. Hey, mind you, let's not be shit talking backstage at your bodybuilding show.
No. No. I've seen girls do that. But I respect the girls. Honestly, there was one show that I did, and this girl just had her headphones in, minded her own business, didn't talk to no one, and, was just so focused. And I was like, I respect that.
That was Nationals, my last show, 2022, Universe. I was backstage, and I've always been kind of a social butterfly backstage. I really like to network. I really love talking story with other athletes and hearing about their journey to stage, because it's also unique, right? But I think at that point, it's, super competitive. You're fighting for a pro card. And what I acknowledged when I went backstage is that nobody wanted to talk to me. And everybody kind of just clicked up or sat by themselves. So I had my little roller bag with me, and I didn't have a coach backstage with me or anything. So I found a neat little corner, and I set my little booth up, and I had my little crackers set up on my that I could eat that day on my suitcase. And I put my headphones in and just looked around, and I was people watching. And what I realized, though, at the end of the day, the athletes who were sitting and chilling, keeping the cortisol low, resting, not risking edema, they won. And I mean, I'm proud to say that I was one of them, and I took overall. And, it was a very calm day in relevance to other shows that I had done. So it is kind of an interesting thing that you bring up there. I do think it's super important to stay down, stay relaxed, stay chill on show days, because that anxiety, that adrenaline, that excitement, it can wreak havoc on that body that you have spent months preparing for that day.
Oh, yeah. I feel I couldn't talk shit in bodybuilding because I was so nervous. Every show makes me so nervous. Because when I play intramurals, it's for fun. There's no pressure on the line. If we win, great. If we lose, okay. We lose an intramural co-ed sport game. But bodybuilding, you work so damn hard all year round to jump on one stage. You get one shot, and it's just all these nerves are oh my God.
Well, I also think on a deeper level, if you really step back and look at bodybuilding as individual journeys instead of as a sport as a whole, you look and you see, some people come from, I'm just going to be arbitrary and use a bunch of different examples. Some people, like myself, come from a medical background. I beat cancer. I was told I wouldn't be able to do certain things. I have this chip on my shoulder that says, yes, you can. You have other people that come from abuse, domestic violence, ED, all sorts of things. And when you look at these individuals, you're only looking at their physique when they get on stage. What I'm seeing is their eyes. What I'm hearing is the words they aren't saying. Because I feel very fortunate. I have a pretty orderly life. I have a very strong support system. And I still go through some of the hardest things I've been through during prep. Not physically maybe, but you, even if you're not actively going through that thing in the moment, it's a lot of personal time, a lot of internal thinking, a lot of reflecting while you're training alone. And so, you really do live through these things. And I think they build you more than just your physique, but your internal being into this beast. And that's what I see from all the athletes that cross the stage. Because no matter how hard that journey was, no matter how seriously they took it, they still each experience that next level of themselves, or some internal thinking or some internal growth, whatever it was. And so, I really just think that everybody who graces that stage there's something special that put you here today.
And I would even go further of, even if you don't win and maybe you aren't fully show ready, but you gave it your all to get on those stages, there is something so special about that.
Oh, yeah. I always say bodybuilding is for anybody, but it's not for everybody. Anybody who wants to be a bodybuilder can absolutely be a bodybuilder. What you determine if it's for everybody is those people who are prepping, are they going to see it through? Are they going to get to those hard sticking points, which typically aren't in the gym? It's with your food, it's with your family, it's with your support system, it's with your mental health. Like, do you get past that? Do you get past that in a healthy way? Do you recover from it? Do you grow from it? Or do you succumb to the challenges? Do you succumb to the hardships? Do you succumb to the adversities that you walk into? And I think that's where you separate, who can be a bodybuilder from who can't. It's not the physique, it's the person.
It's the grit.
And I know you've got grit. You're getting ready to go into prep again, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've already had like some up and downs, but I guess that just goes back to my whole experience of bodybuilding and my true story of why I got into it, why I'm here now, and why the struggles that I do face happen.
And I kind of want to preface that, to anybody who may be sensitive to the discussion of eating disorder. I think you have a very unique story of retribution and how you came back and you didn't become a victim to what you were going through, but instead you turned around and you said, no, this is an adversity I have to face, and I'm going to choose to face it head on. And I think your situation is very unique because something that could have spiraled you out of bodybuilding actually brought you into it stronger and created a stronger internal spirit and drive in you. And so, just to preface, I have a lot of admiration for your journey, and I just want to kind of open the floor to that discussion and, allow anybody who's sensitive to it to leave the room. But I do want to talk about it. So let us know, like, when was your moment?
Yeah. So again, just prefacing, we are going to go into some heavy topics, and, we are here for you if you're listening and struggling through some of the things maybe I went through, maybe Tristan has gone through. So hopefully you stay with us and I'll get into it. So there was 2 exact days in my whole life that really led me to where I am. The first one was, I was born with a condition where I have a fusion in my spine. Found that out 16 years later. I was like 16, 17 when one day at the gym I threw my back out and the pain never went away. Just had no clue. Recovery, doctors, people told me, oh, just rest. Never went away. There was days where I couldn't get out of bed. Like, the pain was so bad. And then, I see specialist after specialist, and every single doctor told me I should never work out again in my life. They were like, just, rest, do what you can. And I was like, I can't do that.
I can't do nothing, guys.
I was like, I don't think you understand.
It's not compute.
I'm an athlete. I work out. Being active is my life. I can't just sit there and do nothing. And so then they sent me to PT as like a last resort kind of thing. And I had friends within the industry of like physical therapy and personal training, things like that. And one of my good friends was like, you need to see this guy. And his name is Mike. He owns a physical therapy company in Massachusetts. He was like, never listen to those doctors. He's like, you and we're going to figure this out. And he's like, I don't care how many no's you get. I'm a yes.
Let's all go talk to Mike.
And if you're in the need of physical therapy, I am telling you, he is a savior. And, you know, I was with him for 8 years because this condition never goes away. If I don't continue to practice, like my warm-up exercises, my like glute activity exercises, I will get worse. And so I was with him for 8 years. And, you know, we joke. I still visit him when I go home, and I'm like, I walk in and I'm like, hey, Mike, been with you for 13 years to see his patients go, what? Like, we don't get better? And he's like, you can't say that. And we just joke. We have a really good relationship. But shout out to him. He was like my true like guardian angel of like, everyone's a no except for me. Like, I'm a yes. We can do this. And so he helped me tremendously in the working out aspect. And then in college, me and my best friend, we were gym goers, you know, double sessions, you know, the huge days. The usual when you first start getting into it, like working out for 2 hours, cardio for an hour, coming back. But we decided to compete. And that's where
in a bodybuilding show, right?
Yes. So bikini.
Yes.
That's where it all went wrong. She was very knowledgeable. She was very smart. I'm smart, but I was kind of new to the bodybuilding realm.
Mm-hmm.
So she was definitely smarter than me in that aspect. But we decided to just do it together without a coach. And what that did was just spiraled us into eating disorders.
Both of you?
Yes. Yeah. So hers wasn't as extreme. I developed bulimia. So everything I ate, I just threw up.
Like, was that like a conscious thing you were doing?
Yeah. And granted, we were only eating 1,000 calories, and I was throwing that up.
And imagine how much of that you were burning also.
3 hours a day.
Jeez.
An hour of cardio, 2 hours of working out every single day, eating 1,000 calories, and then throwing it up.
Can I ask you kind of a hard question?
Of course.
Like, how did you justify that to yourself at the time?
This is what they do. This is what it takes to be a bikini competitor. All this pain, all this starvation is what it takes. And in the back of my mind, my best friend is going through it too. I can't let her down.
Wow.
She is suffering, so I'm going to suffer with her. Let alone, I don't actually think she knew that I was bulimic.
I was going to say, was this an open table discussion between you two, or was it kind of like you guys were keeping it to yourselves?
We were kind of keeping it to ourselves. So I don't think she really knew I was bulimic. And then I didn't know in the middle of the night, she'd be in the kitchen, like snacking on like PB Fit and like something just to curb the hunger. But like every night I curled up in a ball, starving, crying myself to sleep because I just thought that's what it took. And it's not.
That's crazy.
And, you know, we were also on fat burners too.
Mercy.
So, and I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny, but
you're fired, honey.
we were on fat burners, 1,000 calories, and then I was throwing up. And then we were drinking on weekends.
Your metabolism and central nervous system must have been like, what the fuck? Sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I remember just every time I got up from a chair, room was going black.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, am I going to pass out today? Oh, there are the stars. Oh, that's nice. I see lights. Like it, and I'm saying this in like a whimsical way, but in reality, like that was my reality. Like it's not funny, but looking back at it now, I can see like how messed up it was of what I was doing. And didn't really think too much about it until one day, you know, my parents and I are really close. And they used to visit me on campus because we were only an hour away. And, they would take me out to dinner, and it would be a big fuss because it's like, I can't go out to eat. Like, I can't go off my plan. Or if I did, then I would throw up and they wouldn't know. But one wouldn't know, quotation marks.
Parents know everything.
Yeah, pretty much. One day, my mom calls. She's like, hey, I'm coming to campus. We're going to go shopping. I'm like, okay. I could get you some more clothes. I don't know. Sure. I'm not a big shopper anyways, but yeah, sure. And we start driving, and then all of a sudden, I'm in a nutritionist's office.
So hold on. Your parents kidnapped you on the ruse of shopping, and they took you to a nutritionist.
Yes.
Go mom.
Because they knew if they were like, we're going to take you to get help, I would be like, I'm fine.
Right.
What are you talking about? I don't need help. Like, this is just part of the process. And so we get into the nutritionist office. I sit down with the RD, and she goes, if you continue this way, you are going to die, and you're going to die relatively soon. She's like, the choice is yours. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, how can I die from this? Like, it's not a forever thing. And she's like, you will, and it will be sooner than you think. And I was like, okay. So when I was sitting there, those kind of made my heart just like stop, because I never really thought about dying or what I was doing could lead to my death. And honestly, I'm actually really afraid to die. Like, I know that sounds crazy and that's a whole nother topic, but like that, it scares me. Okay. Maybe in time, as I age, I'll be more fine with it. But it actually scares me a lot. So those words really struck, but I was mad. Leaving the office, I was like, how dare she? Like, how?
Because your mom took you in, right?
Yeah, I was like, how? Like, what do you have against me? I'm fine. And so I was mad. And then we got home, and it sat in, and I was like, oh shit, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I need to figure something out. And so then I went to my best friend, and I was like, I'm out. It's like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
And when you said you were out, you were talking about bodybuilding?
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm out. Like, I can't do this anymore. I need to heal myself. And she was obviously super understanding. She was like, good, I can't do it either. And we were both like, so we were just waiting for one other person to back out.
So when you guys made that decision, you both obviously backed out at that point, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you guys have that conversation between you two of causation? Did you mutually blame bodybuilding? Did you have other things that you correlated?
So at first, I just blamed myself and ourselves in the sense of, why didn't we hire a coach?
That's really big of you guys out the gate.
Yeah, like that's how I felt of like, this, I'll take responsibility. But when it came down to the healing process, I realized it was so much more than what I even figured. Because usually, in general, people who have eating disorders, it's a sense of control. And it's mentally, you want to control every single bite. You have a sense of relief when you can control something, when you feel like everything else in your world is going to shit. And it took me a long time to figure out why I wanted to control, because I didn't know. And when it came down to really doing the inner self-healing, the inner work, childhood trauma, seeing what was really happening at that time. So when you go back in time, I see a girl that was so afraid to be herself, that didn't like herself, that did things that she would never do because she just wanted to fit in. And, you know, through high school and just the way that I grew up, in the sense, I felt like I had to please everyone. I felt like I needed good grades. I needed to be the 3-sport athlete. I needed to be the golden child. I needed to have you like me, and I wasn't even myself. And so when it got to just high school and college, I just wasn't myself, but the only thing I could control was food. And it's crazy. It all stemmed from just an idea of competing, right? And then it unraveled into childhood trauma and an eating disorder, but it never had to do with the sport, ever.
I always use the term correlation is not causation. So something can be correlated without necessarily being the root cause, which is kind of what you're defining right now. And I think it's really quite advanced of both of you to be so fresh in that place and be able to have that conversation. And instead of putting blame out, doing more on the self-reflecting side, because I think the true process of recovery starts internally and starts with accepting.
Yeah, and you know, once all that, I guess, unraveled, it was, how can you heal? How can you fix this so it doesn't happen again?
And what did that look like for you?
It took me 5-6 years to fully heal, to have a slice of pizza and not feel the urge to need to burn it off the next day, to not want to eat the pizza. So even still till today, to this day, I'm not a huge fan of sweets. I really never was as a kid, but there is a little piece of me that, you know, knows it's bad for me. So I still won't eat it, even if I kind of want it. But then I'm like, okay, pros and cons, right? And
yeah,
I also think about it as, because I know the science of it, because I know what it can do to your body, it's not worth it anyways, even if I might want the cookie. I'm a little too disciplined. So it teeter-totters that line, right? Of, is like this disordered eating because I won't ever have a cookie? Or is it because I'm too, like, educational? Like, I know the education behind it. And I go back and forth with my own self with that. But recovery really was leaning into the people around me. Honestly, I don't know if he knows this or not, but my ex honestly really, really helped me. And I've never said it to him.
Well, he probably doesn't know.
Yeah, he probably doesn't.
Okay, maybe he'll listen here and find out.
Maybe, I don't know about that. But he really showed me what it was like to have a meal and be fine. Like, we had cheat meals every single Saturday. And he was like, you don't need to work this off. And if anything, I learned that I woke up leaner.
Mm-hmm.
Because being too restrictive is not always the best anyways. And so he really, really helped me understand what it's like to splurge and not have guilt the next day. And just leaning into the loved ones, practicing it too, of, hey, I'm going to have this meal. And if I have any thoughts, I'm going to write them down. Or I'm going to let someone know. Especially in the beginning with, like, being bulimic, of, okay, I'm going to go out to eat with my family. And if I have any urge to throw up, I'm going to let my parents know. Like, I made a vow to myself of, I can't hide this anymore.
You gave yourself some accountability coaches.
Yeah, and it's just to share the struggles in game time, right? Because we're all emotional. And what do we what do we usually react on?
Emotion.
And so if I let those emotions take over in that exact moment, I never would have healed. Because if I kept reacting on emotion, I just would have repeating the same pattern. And so being able to share that with people of, hey, I'm having these thoughts. I need help. Or just tell me it's not true. Or just be an ear to listen. And then when I say it out loud, I'm like, okay, minutes go by and I don't feel those emotions anymore. And that took me a long time to just get used to of, hey, your emotions don't run you. You have full control of every single emotion and thought that is in your head. Or maybe you can't control your thoughts, but you can control what you can do with those thoughts. And that took me a long time to just build awareness around that and heal in that way. And then heal with food of, okay, I can eat this, be fine, and I can be normal. And yeah, quote unquote normal. And then, 6 years passed and I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to compete again and do it right this time. My thought process was, I need to look my fear in the eye, because if I can't look my fear in the eye, it will always have control over me. If I can't compete and not getting eating disorder, it will always have control over me. And I'm always going to wonder, what if? Where can I take my body? The possibilities of what I could achieve, and if I never went for it, would eat me alive. And so I decided to compete. And I texted my best friend and I was like, I'm going to compete. And she was like, me too. And we're going to do this together. And I was like, okay. And so we both looked our fear in the eye. We did have different coaches, but, we both did it. And that day, I have never been so proud of myself, because it showed me that I was so much stronger than what I felt in my fears. And I feel like I'm gonna cry.
It's because it's heavy and it's strong. And it circles back to what I was saying earlier. You don't know the journeys of the people you see on stage. So I look at everybody who walks that stage like they're their own superhero. Rightfully so. Like if you go backstage and you look at 100 athletes, and I ask somebody, which one of these athletes is bulimic? Nobody's going to be able to tell me. You can't see it on the outside. That is a very internal journey and battle that you had to fight and your friend had to fight. And, when you make it through something that was so heavy for so long, the right thing to do is have emotion about it. Because one, it's going to keep you on the right path. That pride, that sense of self-accomplishment, that sense of, I really looked my adversity in the face, flipped it off and moved forward. Like that's something you will always have in your back pocket now. Nobody can take that away from you. And it's worth letting your eyes water for. It's worth it because you're still here when you were directly told you may not be. And you're still here when at 16 years old you were told you could not be. And you're still here getting ready to do another show. You are a walking billboard for looking adversity in the face and saying not today. And that's okay to get a little happy tears for. That's allowed. It's welcome. And then also on the other side of that, you have a deeper understanding of what other people may be going through. And when I'm a person, I'm ADHD, I like to relate things, right? So as a cancer survivor, survivor's guilt is something I deal with very regularly. Fighting stage 4 for 10 years and living in a hospital where I've lost the majority of my childhood friends, every day I wake up, I'm like, what is my purpose here? Like, what am I doing? And, I tell myself it's not for me to know. And I think similarly to your situation, you made it through because you decided to, absolutely. But why you went through it, you may never know. But somebody else will. somebody who hears your story and hears how you got back on the horse time and time again, or somebody who hears your story and a mother out there who's been concerned about her daughter decides that she's going to do what your mom did because she heard this story. You just never know how far your impact goes. And I think people refrain from sharing their story so much because they don't want to come off any type of way or don't want to, dim somebody else's light. But in the reality, all our stories highlight each other. And your story, I remember the first time you told it to me, I cried. It's very impactful. I'm very grateful that you're here because, relationships with food is a very, very real issue. And I think, as kids, we can kind of pass it off as jokes, but as adults, when you look that in the face, you're like, holy shit, this is a problem. This is a problem. And it's not just like you start eating and you're better again. You not only does your body have to physically adapt to certain things, but mentally, as you highlighted, you had so many shifts to work through. And, you use the word healed, but I am curious, since your recovery started, how often do you have to sit with yourself and have the conversation still?
Yeah, I use the word healed, but, I'm never fully healed. There's always things I can work on. There's always things to learn about myself, and thoughts come and go. I mean, we just had one the other day of, I was worried because my carbs were cut and my body. So I was actually listening to a podcast and it was talking about the brain and anxiety. And your brain already perceives what's going to happen before it happens. And sometimes when I cut my carbs or say, I don't know, I work out too hard or I work out and I didn't eat 2 hours before, an hour before, my brain already perceives fatigue. It already puts me in a state where I'm reminded of my eating disorder. And it's really, really hard when I have those days of that fatigue of what it was like to go through an eating disorder, even though I'm eating. I'm working out. I'm not doing 3 hours a day anymore. It's crazy because those days come. And then when you give me like a decrease in my food for the first couple of days, like my brain, because it knows we have less food, it's like, well, we're going to feel like shit. We're going to be fatigued. You're going to have brain fog, even though you're eating 2,000 calories.
I was going to say, even though you're still surplus.
Like, it's crazy. And so, those thoughts come kind of frequently.
But what I admire, though, is a few days ago when that happened, what did you do?
I reached out to you.
You did. And you reached out to me very raw and very true. You didn't try to cover anything up. You didn't try to sugarcoat anything. You didn't try to, say, I have this habit, for example, of, if I don't really want something, but it's coming from my coach, I'll be like, it's fine if you want me to do it. Like, hey, here's my thought, but it's totally fine. Like, I can handle it. And I always end it like that. And what I admired is that you didn't. You didn't end your message like that. It was very much like, hey, here's my issue. Can we have an open table discussion about this? And that's where it led to, like, I'm going to call you. Let's have a call. Let's talk about this. And I could feel some emotional state behind the conversation, but knowing your story, having the open talks that we have had and having the dialogue that we've created, it gave me the opportunity to be a support for you. Not just a coach, but I got to be a support as well. And I think like those things can be separate at times. And so the main thing about your recovery and in your journey that I have probably the most respect for is your communication, is your understanding that you need a helpline at times and not looking down on yourself for it, not taking away from your journey for it, but instead enhancing your journey by it. Understanding that I, as a human, have these thoughts that can derail me, not just mentally, but physically, and can take me away from my well-being. And instead of giving into them, you not only have your parents as a support line, you have a friend and coach here, and you have your other friends, and it's like, I've realized something about you that is so strong is that if you need to reach out, you're going to reach out. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that. And I don't know if it's necessarily because they will think lesser of themselves or they're worried that somebody else will think lesser of them. But I think it's a true strength to look at something and say, you know, I can't do this alone right now. That's not weak to me. The strength is asking somebody for their hand.
If I don't reach out, if I didn't reach out when I did, nutrition's out the window. I'm doing what I want. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm not reaching out, it's because I've given up. And I'm going to do what I want.
So if Michelle ghosts me during this prep, guys, she said it here, I will come for her live on our podcast.
It's because I've already decided in my mind that I can't do this. But if I'm coming to you being like, hey, this is my fear, this is what I'm nervous about, it's because I don't want to give up.
That was the first time that you've actually had to reach out to me about this. Mind you, we had the open discussion beforehand, so it's something I've known about. It wasn't a surprise. But, you know, when you reached out, what were your initial thoughts? Like, were you nervous at all about how I would respond, or were you expecting grace, or were you expecting a hard hand? What were you expecting from me?
Knowing who you are, I was expecting...
A Jack in the Box.
I was expecting grace, but firmness. So I was expecting you to be understanding, but hey, I'm not going to conform to what you think we should do. Because I was like...
Hold on, I want to rephrase that. I'm not going to conform to what your mental state right now thinks we should do.
Yeah, because I think in the video I was like, you know, like, can't we just eat more carbs? And like, that would be fine, right?
But not bananas.
Yeah, no bananas. No, thank you. But, you know, I think I proposed, like, hey, can we try to do this with, like, a lot of carbs? Because that's what I feel good on. And, you know, again, grace, but you saw something deeper and you didn't let that sway your decision either as a coach. And that's what I respect and what I need. I need someone that's going to gently put me in my place. Because I still remember that, I don't know, this was before we decided we were going like prep and exercise. I was like, yeah, I just changed this exercise. And you were like, no.
Why?
We don't do that. You don't just change an exercise without running it by me. And I'm like...
Talk about control.
I'm like, whoa, okay. Even though I know it hits the same muscle group. But no. I laugh about that because I'm like, I was scared because I don't do those exercises because of my back. But I need someone to put me in my place and be like, even if we have to tweak your form just a smidge, we could still do it and we can do it together. And so, yeah, without you knowing, I am so grateful and appreciative that you take that approach and let me share my emotions and my thoughts when it comes up, because in all reality, that's what I've been missing in like a coach.
And I think we really started hitting our stride when our communication became more and more open. Like, you were having issues with movements in the gym because of pre-existing health condition with your back. They were things more so that you were mentally afraid to do, and also lacking the guidance in understanding that, you know, one movement doesn't mean one form. This one movement can have different forms depending on the anatomy of the individual doing the movement. And so allowing me to come in, and I mean, we did an in-person session together, and then since then, you send me videos. Exactly like I request. You want a movement changed? Send me a video. Let me see why. And I will either adjust your form or I will adjust the movement. And when we started doing that, I started seeing your confidence come up in the gym as well. Your confidence in moving through the workouts, your confidence in sending me videos of your movements. And from there, you know, we started our stride. And then you hit your nutrition stride. And then you're like, I could do a show. And then I'm like, oh, you said it. Now it's going to happen. So here we go. We're in prep.
Yeah, when I sent you a video the other day and I was like, my form is atrocious. I was like, I can't even look at it.
It wasn't, though. That's the crazy part.
It felt like it.
I mean, your knees are a little bit more bent than I would like to see them, but ultimately, you are hitting your hammies, your glutes, you're getting full stretch. Let's just work on some mobility a little bit and confidence in moving a weight with the pivot being at your hips.
But I think anyone who has listened this far and who is still
Thank you.
listening, reach out when you need help. Like, find your support system. And I can only speak for myself, and I'm assuming you will probably say the same thing. But if you find me on social media and you are struggling, my DMs really are always open.
She's a quick replier, too.
I try to be.
What would you say to somebody who may be facing this struggle, who maybe doesn't have a direct support system, or they don't have anybody in their life who knows what they're going through yet? How do you recommend somebody approaches that?
First, I would say if we are scared to reach out, start journaling. Write your thoughts down. Really work on not being so much in your head and reread what you wrote. So write it down without really thinking and then reread it and then start working on, does this define me? Is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? And with that, you start to grow some confidence. You really start to work on yourself. But what I would say, number one, is just start talking to someone.
Find a support.
Yeah, find someone that won't judge you and then that can help you. Because I really enjoyed, when I would get comments like, oh, why aren't you eating? Or you're too skinny, like eat some more, or something like that. But then when someone knew what I was going through, they could step in and be like, she's fine. She doesn't, or stop, or, you know what I mean? They could, or I could look at them and we would just roll our eyes. You know what I mean? Like, kind of make it like a joke of like, okay. But having someone to look at or to turn to makes you feel not so alone and with your thoughts. But if you really can't reach out to someone just yet, sit with yourself, journal. And then I'm always a fan of podcasts. Listen, educate, understand what's happening. And because when you see that things are not correlated like you think, and one thing like the food that you're controlling has to do with past childhood trauma or something else happening in your life, it makes it a whole lot easier to not control. And that's my biggest advice. But it is hard to do it alone. It is hard to journal and be like, what do you mean? Like those thoughts? I have those thoughts and I feel that. Like that's how I feel, like who I am. And so it can be a little tricky to do it alone.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I mean, when you map it out like that, it almost sounds like the most control you can have is by letting go of control.
And that's scary.
And powerful. Very powerful. Get educated, reach out, journal, find a support system, even if it's just one friend. Even if it's just one friend, start somewhere because recovery is worth it.
And if you are a gym goer, I bet you there's someone going through a very similar experience or has. Because it is very common in the bodybuilding world, in the gym world. But I do also want to note, eating disorders and disordered eating doesn't always look like starvation. And it doesn't look like bulimia. And it doesn't look like anorexia. It can look the polar opposite.
It can be overconsumption as well.
Yep, binging.
Yep.
Binge.
Absolutely.
And so you going back to, you really never know what someone is actually going through, and to just always be kind to others, because you can't tell just from face value.
And find power in healing. Find power in your journey. Don't end your journey with no wow factor. Don't end your journey with lack of control over living, over experiences, over time with your family and friends. Like, this is so this topic could go on and on and on and on forever, and I feel like there's always going to be stories of individuals who can relate, or stories that tie back to recovery or even not. And so I think that it's a conversation that should be had. I don't think we win by not talking about things. I don't think we win by not finding support. I don't think we win by, staying in the corner. I think we win when we start living our life. And until you let go of those things you think you're in control, but in reality are controlling you, you're not going to get to live that life. But I also want to circle back and say how admirable it is that you went through bodybuilding, developed an eating disorder, worked through recovery, came back to bodybuilding as one of few faces who does that and says, hey, it's not bodybuilding's fault this happened. This was my choice. This was my uneducated, unguided choice that led to a problem. And I'm here now to show you that this is not the causation. And I think, you see a lot on Instagram and socials and stuff about women who've done one bodybuilding show and now it's completely devastated the rest of their lives because they have developed an eating disorder, and they're very open about it on social media, but they don't talk about the recovery. They don't talk about actual causation. They just talk about a correlation that they recently went through. And so I do think it's really, I like to highlight that, obviously, because I'm in this federation. I love bodybuilding. It's been one of the healthiest things in my life. But everybody has their own journey and their own experience. And what you take away from it at the end of the day is yours. But my ambition in this world, one of many, is that more people find their power and less feel like it's taken away from them by a sport they choose to participate in.
I agree. I think as a whole, bodybuilding gets a lot of bad rep. And when you actually take accountability, you'd be surprised at how much it's not about bodybuilding. And it was a blessing to go through this at such a young age and not compete, because then I could really distinguish what the eating disorder was from.
Truth. Also, I want to let you guys know Michelle just joined the 30 Club. So when she says younger, she really means younger now.
Yeah, like 20, 21. The good old days. But it was a blessing because I figured out the missing piece. But people go through bikini competitions, bodybuilding competitions, and then they develop an eating disorder.
And then they don't look for the root.
No. And they just say it was bodybuilding and that's it. But you
proceed to put out videos, try and talk people out of bodybuilding?
But are you handling your other shit? Like, are you handling your other shit in life that it wasn't the bodybuilding, it was everything else besides that? And then bodybuilding was, you correlated and you used it as a gateway.
Match the broke the camel's back. Is that how they say it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I don't want people to think that. But I think this really ties into our next episode about how to find a coach and how to have that support system while competing, to be able to trust someone to guide you in a way. Of course, they can't stop you from having an eating disorder, but they can be pretty damn good at giving you the guidance that you need if you listen, where you wouldn't develop one.
That makes sense to me. You've got a good head on your shoulders about this. I'm proud.
Till next time.
We out.
I wanted to talk